often people think that spirituality is for free, but one should not concern about money. Of course, spirituality is not about concern about money. Like in that question itself is so beautiful put. But if you want to do any kind of service, of course, nowadays it's not like in ancient time. In ancient time, all the ashram, all the spiritual places was taken care by the king. It was the king's duty to look after the ashram. So there were never something which were missing. Even if the guru want to do a certain project, it was all provided by the treasury of the king. But nowadays, it is different. We are living in a time where there's no king, firstly. Secondly, like it is said, in this time, in Kali Yuga, it is said that charity is the mean for purification. In the Bhavishya Puran, it is said that, And in the Ramayana, it is said that among all the important dharma that one have in Kali Yuga, charity, according to one means, is very important. So when we look at that, when one is doing an act of charity, one is participating in doing something for the benefit of mankind, what does that do on our spiritual path? First, if we analyze it, we see that when we give something, it's not that it is a very big amount that people have to give, Whatever they can afford to give, that bear a very great merit in itself, And when we are doing that with an attitude of service, that selfless service starts to awake inside of us, And also, it creates an expansion in one heart. It may be a very insignificant figures, but what does that do? Your heart deep inside, maybe you don't feel it, but you rejoice. And inside you start to feel compassion. Imagine somebody is on the side of the street asking for food and you give a certain amount to that person. You will see that that person will be radiant, and that will make you inside feel good. So you see, charity is important, what you do. And look, it's not that anybody is forcing anyone to give anything, but one have to bear in mind that, for example, in the ashram, let's say Sri Pittanilaya, for example, there is lots of expenses which very often people don't see on the outside. But the little that you give, it helps in every part of that. So, as a devotee, like you said, what should our attitude be towards money? And supporting spiritual service activity financially. So this is the question that that person have. Actually, our attitude, of course, being on the spiritual path, very often people think that spiritual people should not have any money. It's not true. You should have money. And that money should be used in the right way. If you use that money in the right way, whatever God have given you, you know that it is for service to Him. This is the right way to use. In the Skanda Puran, it is said that from the wealth one have earned rightfully, 1/10 must be given in charity. And we see that it's not only in the Hindu tradition. You see it in many other religions where charity, or an attitude of help is important. Then the people will say, but yes, if we do something, we go and do something manually, all this of course is all a help. But you see, there is many projects also which it's needed the finance to finance this project. So without that, it is very difficult. And also what is our attitude towards charity? It's not only we go there and give the money and finish, that this is easy. We have to understand that which kind of proper way we are doing it. Like Krishna said in chapter 17, verse 20 of Bhagavad Gita, he said, charity given to a worthy person simply because it is right to give, because you feel it, to the Guru, to the project which the Guru have, to the ashram. It is very important, then he said, how to give, that without any consideration of anything in return, without expecting anything in return. That is the attitude what you have when you're giving something. You should just either support, but without expecting something in return. Yeah. So, and also in a proper time, which means any time. It can be whenever you feel from your heart that you want to give a certain charity to to the Guru's project, to the spiritual service activities, it have not to be any time or places. It can be anywhere, anytime. But you should do it with gratitude. You should do it wholeheartedly. No. And one thing above all, you see, if you are on a spiritual path and you know that you belong to that path, all your attention should focus upon supporting your path. For example, let's say there is a devotee which have a shop. And the devotees, of course, they know that that devotee have a shop. Or Bhakti Marga shop, for example. In place of buying in another shop, you should always turn towards the devotees, supporting that devotees, or supporting the shop which, at the same time you're supporting the shop, you're supporting the ashram itself. So financially, it stayed inside. It is not going somewhere else for somebody else to profit. So this is the attitude that a devotee should have. Let's support the mission of one Guru. We see that everywhere in other organizations. They will never go and buy something else from somebody else. They will support their own tradition. They will support their own religion. They will support their own path. So like that, this is how you will support spiritually, also financially, your path where you are in. As I'm telling you, there's a beautiful story which I remember about charity. There was once a man, he was always, he will always go to a temple, and when he arrived at the temple, he will put 5 rupees in the donation box. Every day he will make a mass and he will come to the temple. He will not buy flowers, fruits. He will not buy things that everybody bring to the temple. No, for him was just 5 rupees in the donation box every day. So as time goes by, sometime he will come with his wife and little daughter to the temple, but he will put the 5 rupees. So as time pass on, 20 years later, the priests have seen him doing that every day and have built a certain affinity with him. So, but as one day he came, he thought that he was looking very worried. So then the priest was wondering, after 20 years, everybody have bought motorcycle, cars, but for him, he still come with his old bicycle. Maybe he's not well, or maybe his daughter, which is already grown up, and it is at marriage-able age. So maybe that's what is worrying him. So after few days, seeing him, his face was becoming more and more worried. The priest decided to ask him. So he took courage and asked him. So then the man said to him that I have found a boy to get my daughter married, but I don't have that I don't have that money to marry my daughter to him. The wedding will cost at least 25,000 to 30,000 rupees. So the priest said, okay, leave it in the hand of Giridhariji, leave it in the hand of Krishna. He will look after, it is his will. So that night, the priest, when he went to sleep, he could not sleep. So finally, when at the dawn, before waking up, he had a dream. In the dream, he saw that he was counting 5 rupees note. So then he woke up and he realized that in that dream, for sure God had guided him to count, how much for 20 years, giving 5 rupees every day in the temple, how much it will be. So he calculated it and he saw that the amount that for 5 rupees every day for 20 years, it come to 36,500 rupees. And he was very happy. Then he went and said, let me go to bed again. So he went to bed. As he was sleeping, he fell asleep again. Again, the dream appeared. So then again, he woke up. Then he realized that throughout these 20 years, he had put the money on fixed deposit, and the interest for he had also to count the interest for all these 5 rupees, the 36,500. So he calculated again and he come to the conclusion that it is 76,500 with the interest. So he again was very happy, he slept. So he decided that the next day he will take out from the safe of the temple 76,500 and give it to that man when he come. So early morning when the man came to he put his 5 rupees and he was sitting and like looking into the sky, and of course his face was again sad. So they approach him and they hand him over the money. And he said, what is that? And he said, this is the money which throughout this 20 years you have given to God, and God wants you to have this, and also with interest. And he said, and he started crying. He said, Why? And as he was crying, his daughter and wife came, and then he told the whole thing to his daughter and wife, and they also stopped crying. Then an idea came, and he asked, for 20 years I've been giving 5 rupees. Please tell me how much it makes. Then they told him that it makes 36,500. So he counts 36,500 from that money. And he went to the donation box of the temple and looked at Bhagwan's face. He put that 36,500 back into that donation box. And when he looked up, Thakurji was smiling. There was such a radiant, Bhagwan was looking at his devotee's face, and he was feeling that great satisfaction. Then he saw that, he bowed down. He came back. Then the people were confused. And they asked him, why did you do that? He said, well, this was my donation. This was my contribution for the food of Bhagwan. I have given that for his bhog, for his food, I didn't expect that he will ever return that to me. And that what he gave me in return, that I will keep for my daughter's wedding, and I will do a very grand wedding with what he have given, that interest, So you see, whatever service you do, especially, let's say, even the little amount that you do service, note one thing, that is purifying you, that is transforming you into a better person. And also it creates a certain detachment with these things, it gives you a sense of detachment, but this is not the only thing in life. Money can't buy everything, but I can support, I can give at least, somebody asked me, Swamiji, every time when there's darshan, I give a very little amount for darshan, Then he said, I give only, let's say, he didn't say how much, Then I said then he was feeling bad, and I said to him, look, it doesn't matter how much you give, the most important thing is with what attitude you're giving, So even if it is just 5 euros you're giving for darshan, it is a big help actually for the ashram itself, So that kind of attitude one must have, because you see, nowadays nothing is for free. And whatever we have to do, everything have a certain cost in itself. So do it with love, whatever you do.